Riverside.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of On Air with Danielle Gray. Today, we're having a special podcast day. I am interviewing somebody for the first time, and we're calling these episodes Deep Dive Conversations. And I'd like to introduce Sean and a little bit about himself.
Hi, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. I decided to put myself out there. I don't think I had a problem with drinking and different things, but like anybody, there was some things I wanted to work on and decided to challenge myself to make a few changes. So 2020 wrapping up, I just started 2021 without drinking and made it through the year, decided along the way how I wanted that to happen and was successful. In the end of 21, I decided that there was a lot that I went through and there was a lot that I could share. So I turned my journaling into a book, decided to accept my vulnerability and put it out there for anyone that it could help.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I just wanted to interview you so badly because of the whole drinking experience. I've had a few family members myself who, one passed away because of the drinking and other reasons, health issues. And then one actually quit drinking. He was drinking for years and years and years, and he decided to just quit. And then I have another family member who's currently drinking and has been drinking for a very long time. So I understand kind of like where you're coming from. I just want to get into the shoes of who you are and how you were able to just quit drinking, because that's huge when you take responsibility for something like that.
Yes, it's there's so many levels to it, and you know, it's not to discount anyone else's experience by any means, and at the same time, I don't want to put any judgment towards anyone's drinking. It's not this wasn't about what I was doing for other people. This whole thing was personal. This was my own decision, and where I came from, I felt my issue with drinking alcohol was a habitual drinking, and that's where the title of my book came from. Was overcoming the habit and the routine behind where I was going with it.
Were you avoiding anything? Because I know a lot of drinking people just avoid problems sometimes.
There's a lot of different levels to drinking alcohol as any substance, and
yeah.
I think while I would believe I didn't have any problems, I think they were there. I just wasn't accepting them and wasn't dealing with them in a healthy or proper way. I think as far as like functions and stuff go, I didn't want to be different. I didn't want to go about it and not be able to spend time with the same people that I was used to being around or go to the same functions. So it was more about how do I maintain my presence and still have a good time. So it was just learning how to change those habits and routines of drinking or having a drink in my hand and it being an alcoholic beverage because that's what everyone else was having, and just change that into still being there, still being present, but handling or being different mentally. Even if I'm still having something holding in my hand, I'm just not in the same. I feel better the next day, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's of course no judgment here. Everybody goes through their own stuff, and we're all about just becoming our better selves at this podcast. So I'm just really proud that you saw something that you were doing in a negative kind of toxic habit, and you decided to flip that and change that in a way to make your life better.
That was where I was when I started it, and even now. talking to you and promoting the book at all, it became that I was looking for a resource that didn't speak to me the same way that I've written this. There's a lot of content out there. I'm not coming from a place of trauma, even though I could probably bring it back to a point,
Yeah.
like most I think can. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not coming from that place. It's more that I just wanted to put this version out for anyone that comes from a similar place, somebody that wants to, challenge themselves to go an extended period of time, or to learn how to maintain themselves at a function, or in an environment that has drinking around.
Yeah. Well, I find that all drinkers have a little bit of a different way of, I guess, trying to figure out what's not good for them and what's bad for them, and just knowing what triggers them. I know that one of my family members stopped drinking because of his personality changing, and he stopped for years, and then all of a sudden he just got into a really bad place and started doing it again. And then one of my other family members just stopped because he thought, I'm just causing more problems to my life. I'm not making my life easier. I'm making bigger problems, and I'm avoiding the problems that I already have.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one that is currently drinking, I don't really know much about because he won't like communicate with me, but I don't know why the person's drinking, but I want them to be able to at least look at themselves and better themselves if this is something that's good for them.
Definitely, it was somewhere I thought, personally, that I needed to challenge myself to see that I could do without.
Yeah.
And that was something that I put very early in this book, is that, even if the reader gives themselves a chance to at least evaluate where they're coming from, and evaluate what, either it's alcohol or something else, it
Yeah.
kind of all speaks to the same, but just
Yeah.
see where you're at. Maybe do a check yourself to find out
Yeah.
where your habits, routines, your traits, any whatever carries you through the day. Just see
Yeah.
if you're being as healthy and productive as you can be.
Yeah, that's hard for some people. It really is because it's a mental health thing. It's hard for
It
some people.
is. It's very hard, and a lot of it too, that I decided to put out was my age, being a male. There's not a lot of people talking about it. There's not a lot of men that are, going to sit and have this conversation
Yeah.
and talk about a book that they wrote as a journal. And
Yeah.
the journal portion is beyond comprehension too. It was never somewhere I was going to invite someone. It was never someone I was even going to tell that I was doing it, because what kind of, backlash would I have gotten from friends and from whoever, just like, oh, you're journaling. Well,
Yeah.
and then just all the comments that would have came from that. So,
It's very vulnerable. You're being very vulnerable, but it's good because we need more men talking about addictions and mental health struggles and things like that. Just it doesn't have to be from a trauma. It can just be from anything. And it's good that
exactly.
like you're being so vulnerable about this because you're giving a voice to other men and hopefully other men will come forward.
I think so. And it kind of speaks to, because I've been on a volunteer fire department for a number of years,
Oh wow.
um, since 2003. And
Wow.
I've seen plenty of trauma, right?
Yeah.
And speaking with that in mind, it's, um, the traumatic portion, while it exists, you don't have to wait until you've had that happen to make a
Yeah.
change.
Exactly.
To recognize that what I was doing personally, it felt like I was on a bit of a path that, I'm going to catch this now. I'm
Yeah.
going to try a few things and try a few more things and find something that works. And then, you know, that was where I started. That's what worked for me. And it's just another resource that I wanted to put out to say, you know what, this worked for me. This is what I did. And it might work for you.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's just so inspiring. Just as a human being, that's amazing. And the fact that you work as a volunteer firefighter, that's amazing too. You're saving lives and volunteering and doing it. And that's a lot of trauma, but also a lot of good things come out of that too, because
Mhm.
you're helping your community and you're helping people. That's
That's
really,
right.
really amazing. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
I'm really excited about this for some reason. It's just your story is just incredible to me because a lot of men don't speak out. And for you to be able to be so vulnerable and speak out like this and just talk openly about drinking and mental health issues and addiction, it's something that is powerful because I deal with mental health issues, and for men, I find that they have a harder time, and I don't really understand why, but I would love to understand why that is and why there's such a stigma around men and mental health. It's something that bothers me because I want men to get the support that they deserve.
I agree. I think it's just the way that most of us are brought up
Yeah,
from very early, and it comes from generations before. My dad was is this way, and
yeah,
we learn as we grow, but we weren't. I wasn't brought up to talk about it. It was you weren't the strong
yeah,
masculine type if you showed that weakness. And I know that's where I'm coming from. I know it's
yeah,
not a gender thing. It's there's a lot of people not talking in general, but
yeah,
from my perspective, I wasn't talking about it because you weren't strong enough if you had those problems, if you showed
yeah,
that weakness. And there's a lot of people that are talking a lot and a lot of good, but I
yeah,
just thought this version might be what someone needs to hear. And if they relate to what I went through, and they're not talking about it, maybe they'll go to the next function and they'll say, you know what, I'm not going to drink tonight because I don't feel like it, and they'll feel they know how to go about still being there and not drinking as much or not playing the game the way that others in the room are playing it.
yeah.
Um, and
There's a lot of
maybe
peer
that
pressure
evolves.
around that.
It is there
In a
is a lot of
sense.
peer pressure. It's
Yeah,
And you as an adult, you try to say, I don't, it's not peer pressure because that's what the kids are dealing with, but it's not. It's
yeah,
you may call it social pressure instead of peer
yeah,
pressure at a point, but
yeah.
you go to a wedding or a function, or because it's Friday night
Yeah, it's
and
hard
your
not to drink.
friends or neighbors are all in the same room and they're all having drinks or they're doing whatever. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
about just alcohol, but
No, but it's
and
hard not to get away from that when it's always around.
it is, and that's where I decided. That's one of the things I decided when I was going to write this, or at least share this,
Yeah,
that I thought someone else could use. Is what, it is okay to avoid being the same as everyone in the room, and it is okay to still have a good time. You don't have to. There's been times, different functions where someone in my group that was there was just in the corner drinking water, right? They were
yeah,
just, water bottle in their hand, and they played
yeah,
with it, fiddled with it the whole time they were there.
yeah,
And it's okay. But, others, I noticed that. And, I thought, if I'm going to be not drinking, I don't want that image. I don't want it to look like I'm there and just judging everyone
yeah. You don't want to be the
because,
awkward one standing around. I know what
yeah,
you mean.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm that awkward standing around person.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just,
Yeah,
in my groups, there was that person. That person was judgmental. The one or
yeah,
two I'm thinking of at different times, and
yeah.
and maybe, and they never said
We
anything,
often
but,
are.
maybe that's just the way it looked to those of us that were playing the game. So I
Yeah, some of
thought,
them are, some of them aren't. It just depends on who it is,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
and I didn't want to. I just thought I didn't want to do that, so I had to come up with how was I going to carry myself in an environment that I was used to being a certain way, but be different and still have fun.
your
So
book sounds amazing, and just the
there
fact that it was
was
written by a journal.
there was a lot of times that I just didn't know what to do. It sounds so simple, but when your habit and your routine, the way that I use as my base, it was a habit for me when I went to a function and it wasn't always about getting, blackout. I don't think
No,
that was my
no,
problem at all, but, I'd have a few and I'd find a
yeah,
ride home. I'd be safe. I
yeah,
wouldn't drive, but, I'd be having a good time and I'd have all
yeah,
of a sudden it would be like, I'm not feeling good the next day.
yeah,
So to go from the habit of being that way to not drinking at all, it's
yeah,
like, shots would come out and drinks would come out and someone else would be buying a round. And I didn't want to be
yeah,
rude to not accept a round because I was brought up in a way that you
yeah. You
have a
never want to
round
be
bought,
rude.
you buy your round. Like
Yeah,
it's a simple thing, but you're used to being, playing that properly and to go
yeah,
around and say all of a sudden hard breaks. I'm not going to do that now. Like I still want to come. I still want to participate, but I'm not drinking.
yeah,
It was a challenge, and I just thought with this book that I could accept the vulnerability and accept
exactly.
that,
How
and
did
then
your
put it out.
friends actually take it when you started to stop? Did
Well,
Were they supportive? Some of them. I know it's like iffy
some
because
some were
yeah,
family friends. Unfortunate, I have a decent group, but they,
yeah,
some were and some weren't.
yeah,
It was a little bit easier in the beginning because when I started, it was January 1st. It was New Year's
yeah,
resolution, and there's dry January programs where they encourage
yeah,
people to start the year without. So
yeah,
there was a few around me that were also going to do that. So it was easier in that beginning because there were others that were doing it.
yeah.
But by like February and even March,
Oh yeah,
those people all went back to what they were doing, but I was
yeah,
not ready to do that yet. So
yeah.
I started to get a bit more like, oh, you're still not drinking, or you're not like,
Oh
wow,
yeah.
I
Okay.
couldn't
Yeah.
imagine doing that. Like
Yeah.
that is crazy.
Yeah.
But like I'm thinking in my mind, like I'm not ready to go back into that yet. And I didn't know. Um, Eventually, I challenged myself to do the full year of
It's
2021, and I
amazing.
still haven't gone back. But
Oh wow.
when I started, I didn't know how long, but it led to being off for the entire year. I was never gonna do this in my life. I'm gonna do it for the whole year. It was gonna be cool. And early in that year, one of my best friends, he was getting married,
Oh,
and
okay.
COVID shut down their wedding. It was supposed to be the year before, but it got to a point 2021 they were able to do it, and I was in his wedding. So
Okay.
and we used to drink together all the time,
Yeah.
and now I was going to be in his wedding and not drink.
Yeah.
So the expectation socially was there for me everywhere, but then it was even harder for me to now try and figure out how I was going to navigate the bachelor party and the functions and the wedding itself, and not have that beer to cheers or to do the shots or to
Yeah.
play that game. And that became an entirely different problem.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of and he didn't mean to, and we're still good friends, but there was a lot of his habit and routine with
Yeah.
with our friendship that he didn't know he was about to change those things. So he expected, in a way, and this speaks to anybody that's around us that's now getting used to us not drinking or not doing something,
Yeah.
as much as I was trying to figure out how I was going to navigate not drinking,
Hmm.
people around me were now having to do the same,
Yeah.
right? They were now trying to figure out, okay, well, he's not going to. How do I make this not weird, or
Yeah.
how do I change everything I know about this person at these functions?
Yeah.
Um, to like so I don't want to give anybody a hard time saying I didn't have the
Oh
support.
no.
It was just everyone
It's
all of a
just
sudden had to learn.
yeah, it's always weird and uncomfortable when you're going into a new habit and people are like, "What is this person doing?" Because like nobody really knows how to react to that, but it seems
Yeah.
like you had a good amount of friends that were like, "Okay, let's just see how this plays out." And then other friends were just like, "Okay, let's just go with it." we'll just, it's awkward, but let's just go with it. We'll find our way.
Yeah. And honestly, there was a lot that weren't. There was a lot that were like, come on, you did it for a
Yeah.
couple weeks, you did it for a month, like you're good now, you're good, you don't need to do it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And like the thing that my buddy in the wedding kept telling me, and I won't swear on your show, but he was like, you better in drink at my wedding. Like it was, you better be this
Yeah.
way at
You
my
better think
wedding.
about it. Yeah.
And it was like, well, and I didn't know how long I wanted to do this for, but I didn't
Yeah.
know at the time. And I didn't want to not be in his wedding. That was never a
Hmm.
question. It was, I don't know how long I want to not drink for. And I'm working on a
Yeah.
lot mentally in the background.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? So there was a lot of times
Of
where,
course.
my own brother, and good
Yeah.
relationship, but he asked me, he's like, oh, do you have your coin yet? Because I wasn't ready to have a drink.
Oh,
And I
okay.
was like, well,
Yeah.
come on, that's not helping me at all. Like, it's not
Yeah.
about whether or not I've got, like, because
Yeah. You got certain chips. It's about how you feel inside and how you feel as a person and a human being. It's not about with the chips or with AA meetings or anything. It's about how you feel.
yeah. And like, I don't want to say anything about those programs either, because I probably could have benefited. I just didn't think that what I was going through was at that level,
Yeah.
which is the wrong thinking, but that's just where I was at. So, for my brother to say that, and this was early on, so
Yeah.
he's been great, but it just speaks to the confusion of everyone else too. It's not something that we're going through on our own. Like, there is everyone around us that's got to do it too, because
Yeah. They got to
while
change
we're
their
trying
ways
to
too.
figure it out, like I said, we're trying to figure out how we're going to deal with it. Everyone else has to learn uh, what we're going through, especially because we didn't talk about it. Like, I didn't talk about it before, and now I'm starting
Yeah.
to talk about it, and I'm not drinking, and like there's a lot of processing
Yeah,
there.
that's a lot to process for anybody, but it's a lot to process for yourself too. So I give you a round of applause for that. And even not taking like the meetings or anything, like doing it the way that you felt you needed to do it is completely understandable. Everybody has to find their own way.
Yeah, and and I do want to go to a few meetings to just learn that avenue now that I'm
Yeah.
where I'm at. But it kind of goes to speaking and being too proud, and as hard as it is for people to go to those meetings and to continue, when you're even too proud to accept that, like I was,
Yeah.
um that's where, like, I kind of tried to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And I started to listen to some podcasts and
Yeah.
audiobooks, and even doing that was not where I was when I was brought up. Like, there was,
Yeah.
it's now as technology's evolved, but that was, to go and listen to this type of podcast. I never thought I'd be speaking on them, but
Yeah.
to go,
Exactly.
to even listen to them, and to hear people talk about what they've gone through and what they've
Yeah.
done to overcome, and like, that was not something that I thought was for me. It
Yeah.
was, it was like admitting to being weak, and all the things that were the reasons myself and others don't speak up and don't talk. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Exactly.
it was huge. Like, listening to these things, it helped put my perspective in a different place, and
Yeah.
decide that the message is worth putting it out there.
Exactly. You're helping a lot of people without even realizing it. And it's just making a huge, probably a huge difference. And it's amazing that you get to do that now. Like, we all get to do these weird things. Like, I never thought that I was going to be a podcaster, but I figured, well, I want to be a public speaker and I might as well just start a podcast and talk
Yeah,
about my story and talk about other people's experiences, because I want to help people as much as possible. And I want to help other people get their stories out there too, because they're
yeah,
so important. Sharing is so important.
it is, and I'm not done. I don't think anyone's ever finished, but
No.
the hardest part for me, I've gone through it,
Yeah.
and to get on this side of it and then say, okay, well, I did it for a year. I now have a new lifestyle, and then to just leave it at that.
Yeah.
It's the reason I decide, like, I don't want to say, like, I heard a podcast, and it was the guy had said, most people speak from the summit, and
Yeah.
my wife didn't like that word, so I didn't use that word in different places. But
Yeah.
um, a lot of people speak from being at that summit already. They're finished,
Yeah.
they're done, and you're trying to compare yourself to this person that
Yeah.
is has made it. Um,
That's so true.
Putting it out there right away, I didn't know how it would play out, but I thought, you know what, like if I'm going to do this, I want to put it out when it's in its rawest form. I want to put it out
Yeah.
as early as possible, having just gone through the year, being where I'm at that point. Like I wanted to just put the message out there, put the content out when it was like as genuine and real as it was, and then I
Yeah.
can speak to that and evolve from that
Yeah.
moving forward. The um, the sorry, just putting it.
Take your time. Take your time.
I'll get
Can't
back
find
to
them.
it. But
So, sometimes it's hard to find your words.
yeah,
I know that for sure.
I just thought I wanted to put the message out and help other people. I know where I was going. I having gone through the hardest part
Yeah.
and having a better path to where I'm going, it doesn't help anybody else. It doesn't help anybody else learn the hard lessons that I learned. It doesn't pay it forward. So even though I feel I've made it from one point in the journey
Yeah.
to another,
Yeah.
I want to put that out there so that anyone else can find
Yeah.
the motivation to get where they want to be
Yeah.
based on, an experience that they can relate to, or, maybe it's the same. And there's a few things I did that I put in the book that, someone says, you know what, that's going to work for me. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because we all think that it's just an overnight success with everybody because we're looking at a filter in a world with like social media. We're thinking, oh, everybody just makes it overnight. But what we forget is that it's a journey. And sometimes the journey is really messy and it doesn't look all clean and tidy in the beginning or in the middle. And sometimes in the end, we're still kind of like working it out, even though we look all cool and like everything's all shiny and brand new. It's like we're still in that mess. And people
Yeah.
don't seem to realize that with social media and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, I've done it too. We don't share the pain. We
Yeah.
don't post that picture of weakness.
Yeah.
Everybody's social media for the most part is a highlight reel.
Yeah. We don't share the ugly. We don't share like the awful, disgusting tears and the
No.
struggles. And we just show the prettiness of everything. And it's just like, why?
Hmm.
Why would we
It's
should be showing the ugly too?
it's not just the destination. It's how we
Yeah.
got there.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I think everybody, I think society's getting better at that. I think,
Yeah.
like podcasts like what you have here and others, like getting the message out, people that are, there's a lot of people out there that are talking about a lot of really cool things, and just
Yeah.
putting that out there and putting that effort in, it helps all of us.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I wanted to talk to you so badly because I just felt like coming from a place that you came from and me experiencing my own family stuff that's very similar and somewhat different and your life is very similar but somewhat different. And it's nice to hear from other people's experiences. It doesn't have to always be trauma or anything bad like that. I want to hear other people's life experiences and just see how they come through that and how they move on from that and how they can just want to find them better themselves, just want to be their better selves. That's
Hmm.
all. And just like how to work through that messy and just how to evolve into that person that they want to be. So that's why I wanted you on here because your story is just incredible to me. And the fact that you were able to do this all by yourself and with journaling, that's massive. Like the fact that you were able to do something, such a toxic habit to you, and just change that routine. Like it's so hard changing our habits. And you did that. And you did it in such a beautiful way. And then you published a book from it. So that's that's incredible too.
It was quite, it's been quite an experience. I
Yeah.
don't, I do want to give credit to a lot of the, and I put this in my book. Like, I listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts, and
Yeah.
those were what helped me come up with the techniques that I used. Some
Yeah.
of it there wasn't. How I did certain things was stuff I tried, because in the
Yeah.
beginning it was maybe 3 months into the year that was 2021
Yeah.
that I didn't listen to this stuff. I didn't participate in the books. And
Yeah.
I where I work, I've got 45 minutes to 50 minutes drive to
Yeah.
and from every day. So I was looking to fill that time with something. I accepted and looked up this material, and
Yeah.
it's been life changing. But like those things, like I started reading books, and
Yeah.
I've read books. I went through school. It was at college, and all that stuff. But where I work construction in the construction industry, and
Yeah.
the stigma is what it is.
Oh
And
yeah.
you know
Yeah.
when I did my book launch and I spoke there, one thing I said was that at the construction site and at the fire department, we weren't exactly talking about
Yeah.
the newest podcast, self-help podcasts or
Yeah.
betterment programs, or we weren't talking about the coolest books we've just read. Like, those
Yeah.
conversations aren't happening in the environments I've spent so much time in.
Yeah.
And I decided to start reading, a couple months into 2021, and books about habits and books about
Yeah.
betterment and all these things. And there's a lot of great content out there. And those were the things that I learned how to do what I needed to do to, change that habit. Like,
Yeah.
to start in such a small, to use small pieces of what you
Yeah.
want to change. Like, don't run a marathon,
No,
go
start
for a
out
walk,
really small. Yeah.
right? Go for a
Yeah.
walk, and then you're gonna jog a little bit, and then before
Yeah.
you know it, your mind and body are ready for the marathon. You
Yeah.
can't
Exactly.
change a habit by going directly for that marathon, or going
Yeah.
directly for being sober or whatever it is. Like, you
Yeah.
need to do it in small pieces.
Yeah, you can't beat yourself up for failing just like for a little while. Maybe you were just going through it and then like you make a mistake and you're back to doing that habit again and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did it." But it's the fact that you're willing to change that habit is what's going to keep you on track. And it's okay to take small steps and baby steps to get there. It doesn't have to be like full on, let's win the race. In the beginning, you have to succeed in really small steps.
Yeah, because if
Yeah.
we don't see the win, if we don't do it in small pieces to start, and we don't see the win, we're not going to want to move on. We're not going to want to take the next step.
Yeah.
We need to, have the small wins and the
Yeah.
rewards in anything. If it's weight loss,
Yeah.
if it's education, if it's not drinking
Exactly.
or whatever, it's everything has to be broken down into small parts. Well, and
Yeah.
then, like, I kind of learned a lot about, and I have it in my book, about how long you need to do something to make it a habit. Right?
Yeah.
There's lengths of time. It's 20 days. It's 60 days. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes 21 days, people say. Just
yeah.
depends on how
So
it's going to
21
mix.
days, or I heard it's multiple cycles of 21 days, depending on what
Yeah.
it is. If you're,
Yeah.
quitting smoking, or you're like, whatever. If
Yeah.
you do something continuously, it may take you longer than the next person. And that speaks to
Exactly.
anything you're working on. If it's
Yeah.
20 days for you and 100 days for somebody else, you just need to recognize that,
Yeah.
and do what works.
And the small wins are so important to celebrate. It's just like just jumping up and or just pouring yourself something to drink or just celebrating in some way, having a piece of cake, having a piece of pie, just celebrating in some little cheesy way to celebrate your small wins are so important. I know I do it for my podcast because it's just like I go back to how many people are listening and how many episodes are listened to. Just because these things are so important, you need to make yourself feel good in these moments that are just these small little wins because you're getting there. You're just getting there a little bit slower, and everybody learns differently too. We
Yeah,
don't have all the same mind. We're all learn differently, so we can't
that's
be
right.
hard on ourselves. Yeah, and we
And
all
and
know
you're
different things.
that's right. And
Yeah,
and rewarding yourself for those small wins keeps you going
yeah,
because
exactly. They're little like pushes. Like keep going. Like here's your
it,
nudge.
it teaches yourself that what you're doing is what you want to be doing, and the
Yeah,
reward it makes up for, or it's a reward for the
yeah,
pain that you might have by
yeah,
avoiding something or doing something that you're trying to.
yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
positive
that
reinforcement.
marathon, like if you are looking to run a marathon, using that example again, and you
Yeah,
decide, it's not for you because you only made it halfway,
yeah.
you call that a fail, but they'll everyone in this
Somebody else looks at that as a
yeah,
win.
it is a win, and
Yeah,
because you weren't running at all before, and now you're running whatever length a half marathon is, and just because it
yeah,
wasn't the full marathon doesn't mean you failed.
yeah. You at least did like half of it. That's incredible if you did half. I
At
mean, you're
least you put
getting
you
there.
even if you just put your shoes on,
Yeah,
just the
I mean,
attempt. That's
just
the
do.
start. It's just put your shoes on. That's day one, and then by the
Yeah,
time you're working through it, you've got your shoes on and you're walking.
yeah, exactly. Like these little habits change everything, and you just seem so much probably happier where you at now. Like I don't really know you personally, but you just seem very content with yourself right now. And it's
I
just,
feel good. It's
yeah,
there was a lot more than just drinking. Like that was just the
yeah,
start for me that I wanted to work on.
yeah,
But it's so much easier, or it was so much easier for me to work on other things
yeah,
once I saw something else working.
yeah.
Um,
It is.
and I started like I didn't feel great about how often I brushed my teeth. I
Yeah,
wanted to do it more. So that was the
yeah,
first thing I did. It was like I'm going to do this every day for 100 days or whatever it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
And
That's me with
and
flossing.
I'm gonna write it. That was where I started.
Yeah,
Sorry, I started by not drinking, but then once I learned more about habits, that was something else.
yeah,
So I started writing it on the calendar. I was going to circle the day twice if I did it
yeah,
morning and night, and then I got to see that many days in a row, and like it got to a point where like I didn't go to bed or I didn't like do anything after I woke up until I had brushed my teeth, and I took that and did it. Once I started doing one thing and the next thing, like it transfers to anything.
yeah.
And
Transfer to
I
anything
do.
and everything.
I
Yeah,
feel a lot better. I'm a lot more positive. Like my
yeah,
family will agree. Like there's things that I'm able to transfer to them in different capacities with my kids, and
yeah,
it's not about changing their life directly, but I can make them have better habits through the ways I've learned
yeah.
and
Because
and
kids
managed at
learn
home.
from watching, so it's good that you're giving your kids something to aim for. Because kids learn from watching you, so it's just
Oh yeah, and
and
they
hearing
pick
you
up
and
on they pick up
yeah,
on a lot more than we realize.
yeah. So they're learning so much from you and they don't even realize it, and that's incredible too. Like that must make you feel so good as a parent.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that
And
must
and
make you
just
so
not
determined.
drinking it, I don't miss it. It was and in the book it was always just a break. I just needed a
Yeah,
break, and then all of a sudden it was, I'm going to do this for a year because that's going to be cool. I'm going to challenge myself. Who can say that they did that for a year? And
yeah,
it's evolved from there. But for the sake of the year that was and what I wrote about, it was a break. But like I feel really good. I don't miss being hungover. I enjoy that I've trained myself or learned how to manage in an environment where it's around me. I don't feel like I need it.
yeah.
I went 9 or 10 months without any substitute, I'll say, like
Oh
any of
wow.
the 0% or
Yeah,
any of those things, because I wanted to change my mechanism, or I wanted to change my habit. And I felt
yeah,
if I went from a beer with 5% to a beer with 0.5%,
hmm,
it wasn't going to change anything for me because
yeah,
quickly I would just go back to the other.
Yeah.
So for 9 or 10 months,
Still
I
feel
didn't
like you're holding onto a beer. Not really.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll have them now as a way to, like I said,
Yeah.
not be that one in the corner. But like I enjoyed the taste of it too. So
Yeah.
now that I've controlled what my call it triggers were with it, I can have that 0.5% and not feel like I need to be having however much more or get right back into it. That's not going to work for everyone, but that's where this stuff, like everything I listen to, everything I've learned, I mean, you really have to take the piece that makes sense to you. And
Yeah.
for me, without even any of this content, I decided I just knew I couldn't have a substitute in the beginning. I needed something completely
Oh,
different.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's like substituting candy for something else. It's the same thing. If it's an addiction, you can't really substitute anything into it. You have to
Yeah,
just kind of stop slowly and then like eventually go cold turkey.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it is, and I don't miss it. Of course, there are things, but I think that's
Yeah.
more just. I think I feel I miss it because it was such a big part of, not always daily. I didn't need it every day. It
Yeah.
was more a habit that I
Social.
would at a function and a social thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just don't feel like I need it. There's things I just don't miss anymore. I used to drink a lot of Baileys in my coffee
Yeah.
on the weekends, right? And
Yeah.
it was almost a staple every Saturday, Sunday, whatever, camping especially.
Yeah.
It was a staple, and there's times where others around me will have it, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that was, I like that stuff, that was good, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
I don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
good that
feel
you know that you don't need it. That's the bigger step is that you know that you don't need it because it's like that's really making like that's the huge difference that you really made was you don't need it in your life. You just know that you don't need it.
I know I